2024 of the Code of Georgia of the Title 37 of the Mental Health and the Chapter 3 of the Examination, Treatment, etc. of the Mental Illness, Article 6 of the Rights of the Privilege of the Patient of the Reps of the etc. of the Generally 37.3 of the 140 through 168 of the right of the privilege of the domain of the care of the treatment of the release from the client of the record, section 32 of the 33 160 of the treatment of the client record of the relief of the permanent scope of the privilege of the communication liability disclosure notice share of the discharge. Clinical record of each of the patients will be maintained with the authorized relief of the record, including without limited examination of the original record of the copy of any of the portion record of the scope of the information on the records covered as matter of the privilege done with the law of the chair of the self of the examination conducted on a hospital premises of the responsible time determined whether the faculty clinical record of the public clinical record shall not be of the public record of the known part of the release except when the chief of the medical officer of the facility of the record shall the deem it essential for the continuing the treatment of the copy of the record of the part of there be the release of the physician or the psychologist when evidence necessary for the treatment of the patient. Copy of the record may be released to any of the person into the designated with the writing of the patient is for the appropriate of the minor partner parent over the minor of the legal guardian of the adult over the minor of the person over the legal custody of the minor parent patient over that has been given by order of the court with a copy of the record of the deceased pay for the deceased with the form of the patient with the may relief of the response of the valid subpoena with the corner of the medical examiner within chapter 16 of the title 45 with except for the minute of the privilege of the law of the state with when the patients of the minute with the facility with the copy with the record of the information contained with the record from another facility of the community mental health center with the private practitioner with the may relief of the admitting with the facility with the service plan with the patient with involved with the transfer of the patient with another facility with the community with the mental health center private particular practitioner with a copy of the record information was contained with the record of the maybe relief of the facility of the community mental health center of the private practitioner with a copy of the record of the dating of the part of the therefore of the scope of the employee of the staff members of the facility when an issue of the property of the treatment of the patient copy of the record show of the leave of the patient only for the turning of the show of the request of the patient with the patient with legal guardian consent with the release. Bona fide the medical of the emergency determine the physician's treatment of the patient with the chief of the medical officer of the may relief of the copy of the record of the treating physician of the patient psychologist. After the question of the patient with the patient's legal guardian of the patient determine the record shall be produced at any with the custody of the any of the hearing held under the chapter of the copy of the record shall be reproduced respond with the valid opinion of the order of the court over the competent of the jurisdiction except for the matter of the privilege under the law of the state of the copy of the record may be the relief of the legal representative of the deceased of the patient of the state of the except for over the matter of privilege under the law of the state of the nothing of the state of the of the provision of the law of the country of the law enforcement officer of the courts over the criminal investigation in the form of the web of the person of his or has been with the patient of the state facility as well as the patient with the current address safe and known notwithstanding any of the other provision of the law of the country with the law enforcement officer of the courts investigation with the commission with the crime of the premise of the facility covered over the chapter with against with the facility with the person with the threat with the commission of the stuff of the crimes may be informed of the circumstance of the incident with the include with the individually alleged committee threatening committed with the crime and have of the patient within the facility with the name and address and with the last known whereabouts of the alleged partner or the patient perpetrator in connection with any of the hearing under the chapter with the physician include with the psychiatric with any of the psychological treatment and treatment of the patient was really authorized to have given in advance man with the external of the patient included the evidence of communication over the privilege code section 24 550 124 12 1 43 39 16 and any disclosure of the code section authorized disclosure of the confidential privilege of the patient information communication should not in any way over the bridge of the confidential privilege for the chapter of the thereof except for the purpose of the authorized disclosure is made by the person of the making of the disclosure authorized code section is not liable to the patient or the other person with notwithstanding counter provision code section 24 501 24 12 the 1 43 39 16 with the share of the transfer of the adult with the involuntary patient with the facility with the share of the main request the writing with the notice such of the patient with the discharge of the be given in the share of the notice of the provide with the trust of the patient with the patient guardian's consent with the writing of the disclosure or in his discretion in the court ordering an involuntary with the treatment to provide with the trust of the notice ordered issue with the pursuance code section 37 and 3 81 1. Alright, right of patient examining his records over the act of the request for the current correction and the inaccurate of the promulgation of the rules, regulations, judicial supervision for the record of the litigating procedure under this chapter. So for the providing subsection with B of the code section 37 and 33, 162 of the average patient of the right to examine the medical record of the patient with the name of the department of facility of the patient in the hospital with the tree with the sheet for the patient over the right to request and inaccurate of the information found with the medical record be corrected. Board promulgated with the all of the rules, regulation, implement subsection A with the B with the code, so with the not and contain with the code section, control with the require with the deletion with the information with the department of network, control with the department with the district with the patient with the record with the reasonable passage of time. Now, which paragraph 7 and 8 with the code section 15, 9, 30 with the provision, article 4, chapter 18 with the title 50 with the file with the record with the core with the proceeding of the chapter section 1, September 1st, 1978 with the child with the remain shield with the child with the opening the inspection with an order of the court with the issue with the petition with the notice for the patient with the subject with the provision with the code section 37.3, 160 pertaining with the medical portion over the record with the if the official of the employee with the court with the facility with the assistant with the person with the non-official with the employee with the name in the court over the court facility and attempt to gain access with the name of the court record official with the employee know of the concern examination, evaluation, treatment, the commitment of the mental illness, such with the record of the creative of the prior of the September 1st, 1978, such with the record of the obtained no information concerning with the patient with the ordinarily public, such with the fact of the with the guardianship created with the official of the employee with the deal of the record is in the possession of the core of the faculty shall inform the person seeking action for the job of the record exists in its own inspection with the only or upon order of the court over the issue of the petition by the notice of the patient subject with the provision code section 37.3, 160 of the statement of the medical record or portion of the record upon petition of the access such of the file with the record of the referred to the paragraph 1 and 2 with the subsection of the court shall with the inspection of the person subject with the record of the there and complying with the reason for the why should be not should not but subject request any of the persons who is subject with the over the court with the record of the complying reason with the record shall be open with the access with the granted court order shall be restrict with the dissemination of the information with a certain person with a certain purpose of the bowl with the court with the may refer with the sub of the file with the record of the refer with the paragraph 1 and 2 with the subsection of the subsection proceed with the end of the chapter of the code in terms of the subject of the petition with the condition of the file with the record with the subsequent the proceed with the seal with the core with the subsection of the core with the permanent with the authorized representative of the recognized organization with the compelling the statistics for the proper purpose to inspect with the make extract with the official of the record with that person with identifiable the information for the mode after with the condition of the use of the distribution of the core with the made deemed proper the court may punish with the contempt any of the violations such as any such conditions. 37.3, 168 with the right of the patient's attorney interview with the psychologist, physician, psychologist, staff attending of the patient for the establishment of the regulation and the leave of the information for the patient with the attorney. Patient with the attorney shall have the right of reasonable time of the interview with the physician, psychological staff with the have of the attendant with the non-attendant with the patient with any of the facility have with the patient with the records interpreted by them. Chief of the medical officer authorized with the director of the establishment of the reasonable regulation to make of the available to the patient with the attorney, such with the information possession with the facility with the attorney with the requirement in order to provide with the representative with the patient with the concern with his hospitalization. And let me go back here to part 2 where why alright, did we read that? Alright, we read that all. Okay, I didn't think it was that long. Okay, that was Code of Georgia Mental Health Examination, Treatment, etc. of the Mental Illness Rights and with the privilege to pay for the representative of the generally rights and privilege of the demand of the care of the treatment, the maintenance of the clinical records.